Netflix's Bird Box is one of those movies that everyone and their mother has seen up to this point, and I was more so curious to see what all the memes were referring to. I knew nothing about this movie going in, minus the fact that it was a horror movie and the reviews were extremely polarizing. You have two camps of people for this movie that I have seen so far. People saying that this is the dumbest movie ever made, or overhyping it to the point where they think it's the next Citizen Kane or 10 out of 10 movie with zero flaws. I've also seen many people comparing this movie to The Quiet Place, which I definitely think is a fair thing to say, but people saying this movie copied it or stole the premise are just dead wrong. The movie was initially based on a novel and has been around far longer than The Quiet Place. I don't understand why people have to make the conclusion that something is copying if something has a similar style or even a somewhat similar premise, which I don't think they have a similar premise in the slightest. The people saying this movie are terrible are fine to have their opinion, but in my opinion, this simply isn't the case. The great things in this movie are pretty consistent throughout the film, but there are a few horror tropes that seriously threw me for a loop and drug me out of the realism of the universe when trying to take the film seriously. For instance, the character of Olympia was not so subtle at all and pretty frustrating at times. I think the movie could have done without this character and really only used her as a plot device, especially when she lets in the bad guy 2/3 of the way through the movie, and kills the majority of the survivors. If they wanted to have this character infiltrate the group, then they could have gone a much better route with doing it, rather than Olympia letting in the danger stranger while everyone is asleep. It just seemed like such a cheap moment and literally plunged the movie into the next act without reason, other than somebody doing something stupid. Even with this glaring character annoyance, some of the other characters are so underused it begs the question why they're even in the film to begin with. For example, the drug dealer and the cop character randomly steal the car during the film and are never seen again. What's the point of having them in the movie if they serve no purpose other than screwing over the group? Why not show them getting into a wreck and those freaky insane asylum cultists pretend to help them out but yank off their blindfolds, killing them and giving the audience a proper ending for these underdeveloped characters? The old lady was alright, and I think she got enough lines to convey her character across, and they actually used her in the script, unlike the druggie and the cop, which were only used during those critical plot moments for no apparent reason other than the script demanding it. I know it sounds like I'm seeing a lot of negative things about this film, but I definitely think the positives outweigh the negatives in this movie. For instance, Sandra Bullock's acting is seriously on point in this movie, and I couldn't spot a single scene where she seemed out of character. This trend pretty much goes for everyone else in the movie. Pretty much. The two actors that slowed down the pace of the movie and made me literally sigh out loud with annoyance were the two kids that Sandra Bullock's character is the mother to. Well, at least one of them. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound like I'm making fun of a child's performance in the movie, but the talking scenes with these characters, especially the river scenes, are jarring compared to the other great actors in the film. That's not to say that they don't have any redeeming qualities in the movie, but I just found the dialogue a bit off and over the top in most scenes. For example, when the girl was about to take off the blindfold in the forest, I was seriously saying out loud, "Just do it," and getting annoyed that the film was basically teasing the audience with whether or not she would actually do it. This for me was the most annoying part of the movie, but it was also intense after they regroup and have to run from the monster in the movie. I could be super nitpicky and talk about how they should have run into trees and tripped a lot more in the final act of the movie, but I thought it was pretty well done with using birds to lead them to safety. It wasn't perfect, but it was decent. The coolest creative scene, in my opinion, was when some of the characters used the car's GPS system to navigate to the supermarket blindly, and just the tension when all of the sensors start beeping sporadically. Now, I'm not really a person that likes giving out number reviews because I find them to be outdated and generally unfulfilling when it comes to watching and making reviews. I like to go on a system similar to what Netflix does for rating films. I like the thumbs up or thumbs down system, as long as I can explain to you guys why I give it that recommendation. I think that this is a thumbs up movie, far before it's a thumbs down, but it does have a fair share of issues. If you are a fan of the apocalypse horror genre, or a fan of pretty good acting in these scenarios, then you'll probably want to give this movie a try. The ending of the movie left something to be desired, and kind of ends on a bland note, but it doesn't ruin the film for me in the slightest. At the end of the day, I think that it's definitely worth a watch, and it's up for you to decide how you feel about it at the end of the day. If you can overlook some of the glaring issues, then I think many of you will like this film quite a bit. But if you need to have perfection when it comes to plot-related things, maybe give this one a skip. It's up to you, honestly.
I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for regrets.